Today I'd like to create a simple plan for you to be a billionaire. And now you might say, well, Mark, how can you teach somebody you're not a billionaire yourself? And I've worked with a lot of billionaires. I have a sense of how they do it. And I've worked closely with their teams. And also I've been a student of how to start with nothing. And so, there's the vision. You can have a vision of having $1 billion in the bank. And that's a good place to start because really, if you really thought about having your own $1 billion, if you look closely, you probably don't really want it as much as you think. So the first part is to write down that goal. Like, I allow myself to have $1 billion, and then listen to what your mind says. Your mind is going to say, oh, come on, that's stupid. You're never going to do it. That's for rich people. Or if you had $1 billion, if I had $1 billion, somebody would try to kill me. Or, there's all kinds of reasons that we have for actually not wanting it. And so those reasons will keep us from ever actually looking and seeing how to get it. But so let's assume you've got that handled and you're at peace with holding that vision. And when you talk to somebody else and they say, hey, what are you up to these days? You say, well, I'm making my first billion. And when you can do that without feeling embarrassed or any kind of a shame about that, then you're on track. So that's kind of the meta activity. So now what are some of the steps? Well, you need a methodology. So there are a lot of different ways to become a billionaire. One thing I recommend is going to the Forbes 400 list and just start reading all the different ways that other people became billionaires. So go ahead and do that just to kind of get yourself warmed up. But remember, those billionaires did it in ways that were relevant to them in their era. And time has passed since they started. And now we're in a whole new era. So you're looking for opportunities that are relevant to you and relevant to the needs of society now and opportunities now. So let's just say, some people get wealthy just trading crypto. And we're not going to cover that because that kind of wealth, first of all, it's cool. I mean, I'm not opposed to that. I'm just saying that doesn't really involve directly leading anybody else. In fact, most people who are there, if they're making their money just trading, whether it's crypto or any other kind of commodity, stocks, etc., they're using a system somebody else built, but they don't really have to contribute to that system. And the kind of people I'm interested in are people that want to make the world a better place. My interests are ecology, human health, and walkable, cities where it's really enjoyable to live and you don't need a car and you get to see people and, just kind of a community atmosphere. And I'm interested in more things than that, but that gives you a flavor of where I'm putting most of my energy. And so, my general theme is creating a peace-based economy. And what does that mean? That means where everyone's got enough food, everyone's got enough shelter, and that people are really living joyful lives, from day one, and that war is just, a thing of the past. Will I see that in my lifetime? I don't know. We'll see how long I live, first of all, but that's what I'm working on. All right, so what are some of the next steps? So identify, I've been interested in the plant-based economy. I took the time and I've identified $15 trillion of annual revenue opportunities to transform the global economy to relying more on plants and less on animals. And that's what the plant-based economy is. It's about decommodifying animals. But there's more than, just eating a veggie burger. I mean, animals need homes too, and we're in this world of shrinking habitat and shrinking populations of wild animals. And that, of course, goes back to my interest in ecology. And there's more trillions of dollars of opportunity in protecting ecology than I've ever seen. And there's more trillions of dollars in making cities really livable and fun. So I've identified easily 20 to 30 trillion dollars of opportunities. My biggest challenge is that I'm looking for people who would like to lead projects in this space, build businesses, whatever it takes to really take part of that opportunity. So whatever your niche is, whatever your interests are, when you start looking at things in terms of market capacity, then you begin to see, like, it's going to be hard to be a billionaire if the kind of thing you're trying to do only has a market of $1 billion. And why is that? Well, first of all, billionaires don't generally have $1 billion of cash in the bank. I mean, if they're multi-billionaires, then yes, they're going to have some cash accounts. But in general, all the wealthy people I've ever worked with, they're kind of cash poor. They tend to try to keep all their cash invested in assets, and that's because, as you probably know if you're this far in this video, the bankers of the world, they keep deprecating the value of the currency. So anything left in cash just shrinks. So if you're interested in wealth, the first goal is to have as little cash as possible. And so, but a lot of people fantasize, oh, if I was a billionaire, I'd just go to the bank or, go to my piggy bank and just grab the cash and go buy stuff. And so, you can see that's not that easy, because when a billionaire wants to buy something, they have to liquidate the asset that they have and convert that into cash in order to buy the next thing. And, a good example of that is when Elon Musk sold a stock in Tesla, some of it, not all of it, but a nice chunk, in order to pay cash to buy Twitter. Well, a lot of shareholders in Tesla didn't like that, because when a wealthy guy unloads piles of stock from the company they built from day one, at least he was the first investor in Tesla. So, when he sold all that, then that put a lot of downward price pressure on the stock. And so it's not just cash. It's, everything is dynamic. When you're a billionaire, your whole estate is your whole, your net worth, everything is just fluctuating like crazy, up and down with valuations, things like that. So now we understand that what you're really trying to do to be a billionaire is to hold assets that are where you control, during your lifetime, while you're alive, because when you're dead, you kind of, I don't know, I haven't died yet, but as far as I know, you can't take it with you. In fact, I remember I used to play poker when I was a kid, and one time I had a dream that I was just winning big in poker, and that I just had this pile of cash in front of me. And then I realized I was dreaming, and I said, you know what? I'm going to hold on to this cash. I just grabbed that cash as hard as I could. I said, I'm not going to let this go. I know I'm in a dream, but I'm not going to let it go. And I just grabbed that cash as hard as I could. And then when I woke up, I was just holding a pillow. So I don't know. If you could take it with you, let me know. But I couldn't even pull it out of a dream into this life. And what happens after that, I don't know. But anyway, it's an interesting experience of life on this earth, to be responsible from the leader state, that you are accountable for the allocation of all those funds. And think of all the people who are working with you, and then all of the people who might be investing in their life savings are going up and down along with your decisions. So it's a big responsibility. There's almost no way that I can think of, just to have the cash with no kind of downside risk, with no responsibility, with no engagement in society. So I think it helps to really like people the way they are. Like people are the way they are, and we call that good and bad, but they just are the way they are. And the most powerful leaders I know really were very loving people, and that doesn't mean they just let people do whatever they wanted, but they love people like you might love, somebody might love making fine handcrafted woodwork, and so they really, wealthy people are generally great students of humanity and love the kind of creatures that we are for who we are. So what's next? So now you've got this idea of the kind of part of the world you want to have an impact on. You've identified a market that's sufficiently large to generate the kind of opportunities. And then you want to be able to build assets. So how do you build assets? There's a couple, there's a lot of ways, but we're going to focus on two. One is just acquiring revenue producing assets. So there's, a lot of wealthy people just go into real estate, commercial real estate, rental properties and things like that. And in a lot of ways, the banking system, everything is kind of set up to facilitate that. And so basically what you're doing is acquiring revenue generating assets until you've got your billion, and then your net worth is the difference between the value of the properties and the debt that you might owe on them. Now, the reason I find that fascinating is these days, if you're able to organize the cash, whether that's borrowing or whatever it is, you can acquire forest lands and get paid to leave them as wilderness. And so there's so many opportunities now to protect native forests and restore native forests and rebuild ecosystems. Now, to me, rebuilding ecosystems is, protecting and restoring ecosystems. That's like probably the number one motivation in my life for me doing what I'm doing now and even making this video is, like, if you're into ecosystems, I want to work with you, because there's just the opportunities. I've never seen opportunities like this before. And, I had a lot of successes taking the political approach, but that's a very us versus them kind of approach. And when you kind of go more for a win-win approach, just the opportunities get much bigger. So acquiring revenue generating assets is just one way to become a billionaire. And some billionaires, they acquire companies. So a company is an asset as well. And really a company works the same way as a property. Like if you want to go, a lot of people probably understand how rental property works. The value of the property is some multiple of the net earnings on that property, which is of course why landlords always want to jack the rents, because if they can raise the rent, then that means they raise the value of their assets. So take that for what it's worth. I mean, that's the basics of all the economy, whether you call it capitalism, socialism, or any other flavor. And why is that? Because here's an obvious case. Like, let's say you got one apple seed. That's not that valuable. There's plenty of apple seeds out there in the world. But if you plant 100 apple seeds and grow 100 trees and nurture them, and now they're producing food every year, you can see that's more valuable. It doesn't matter what system, if you call that capitalism or any communism, you can just get that at a human level, an orchard is more valuable to human beings than a seed. So this is also why, I became an expert in how to finance things from the idea stage. And most people think, well, first you make a pitch deck and then you send a bunch of letters to a bunch of venture capitalists. No, that doesn't work. I mean, unless you actually know exactly what you're doing, that doesn't work. In fact, the people that do know what they're doing, they're friends with the venture capitalists first. They don't write a pitch deck. Yeah, some people make it on that, but that's like a 999 to 1 odds, 1,000 to 1 that's going to work for, you want to start a food truck, you don't start sending pitch decks to venture capitalists, even if they care about, your niche. So, people in my community learn the right way to raise capital from day one. and even raise their own salaries. That's the whole point of why I call it Make My Nut, because if you're listening to this and you're broke and you want to make $1 billion, and you start with a good story, your leader story, and you convert that into revenue, and then from there we can talk about how to grow and fulfill the vision of your leader story, and how to receive the additional resources that would be required, and how to take management and responsibility for more and more money. So, I mean, really, when you think about it, a billionaire is just somebody who's taking responsibility for a whole lot of other people's money, and then that reflects in their own personal, the value of all the asset, all the control that they have over those assets. So a company, just like a rental property, the more revenue it generates, the more valuable it becomes as an asset. So, like if you go to a stock market, what you're doing is you're buying shares of the asset value of that enterprise, and that asset value is also going up and down because there's different markets for different types of assets. So what you're really having to focus on is, okay, how am I going to create value? And enough value to get in the game of whether you're growing your own enterprise or whether you're acquiring other types of real estate or you're acquiring other people's businesses and improving the function of that. It's really about asset accumulation. It's not so much about, making $1 billion in cash. Again, I'm sure there are maybe a lot of crypto people who just suddenly had $1 billion in asset value, and it's an amazing thing. Again, no shade on those people at all. And if you want to do that, I'm not your guy. I get crypto, but I'm not in it in any meaningful way. I can provide very, very macro guidance. There's so many people better than me. But if you're somebody that you've got your own passion, right? But people come to me because they want to do what they're passionate about, not just getting rich. But when you're able to grow your passion, and that's so genuine, it can turn into that kind of wealth. And so let's just say that having wealth from my personal spending has never been my main issue. I've actually been focusing more on that because I neglected that so much because the reason I wanted to organize wealth is for my goals in those areas of passion. I was imbalanced in that area. So part of your billionaire journey is also taking care of yourself so that you can execute and that you can have a great family life or whatever that means to you, having a healthy personal life. Because if you neglect your body, you're not going to have as much chance to experience that level of responsibility. If you die, kind of game's over, right? So your biggest asset is your body. We're not going to talk about that here, but think about that. So as you're going out in the world, and what I teach people is how to balance their economic energy, balance their economic cash flow so that they're getting rewarded financially for the energy they're putting out appropriately, as opposed to what so many entrepreneurs do is they put their own family, their own personal health, and everything at risk. And this is an old-fashioned way of thinking and an old-fashioned way of doing. I don't teach that. I teach that you can have abundance in your own health as well as your own wealth, and that they really belong together. And if we're going to create a healthy world, we don't want to create a world where it's like, well, I'm going to smoke cigarettes and I'm going to eat crap all week and then I'm going to go to the gym on Saturday. And that's pretty much how, that's a whole nother video, but if you really look at how good happens in the world, that's pretty much like that. People that do kind of destructive activities in their day job and then they accumulate some wealth and they donate it to charity and call it a day. These issues, again, we're looking at easily $30 trillion of market opportunity. You're not going to get there in a charity. You need to really think clearly about what it takes to be a player, move the needle, make a difference, And I think this is a good long video. We're headed to 20 minutes, so I'm going to leave it there. If you have any questions I didn't answer here, ask them in the comments below. Thank you if you're still here in the video. And if it calls to you, join my Make My Net community or book a discovery call with me. Right, I put the link right in the notes about this video. All right, I'll talk to you later.